Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I guess the first order of business is to identify whether we have a quorum or not. And pum, pum, pum.
From what I see, Mark, it looks like we have 6.
And is that enough for quorum?
I think we're supposed to be 1 over for a quorum.
Membership is
1 over
13.
Mary Mitchell says Mary Reeser is here with her, I think, in the chat.
Mary, is that, can you confirm that, please?
Yep, she said yes.
Great. So we have a quorum then. All right. Do we have any additional items to add to today's agenda before we go forward with it? Hearing none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for May and September. Has anyone had a chance to review those, and is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I had 1 typo correction that I noticed. It's very minor. On May, page 3, 3rd paragraph from the bottom. Another feature we have not explored or configured is instead of in the popularity sort of.
Are there any other changes or corrections to the minutes?
Dia, thanks for finding that. I can make that change easily.
And I would move that we accept the May minutes as presented.
I will second that.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, ayes have it. Great, we've accomplished our first agenda task, or our really important one there, approving the minutes. So
Actually, only half of it.
Only half of it. Oh, was that only just one set of minutes?
I said for May because I didn't know if
for
anybody had
May.
anything for September.
Okay, do we have any comments or concerns about the minutes from September?
I move we approve the September minutes. This is Kathy.
Thank you, Kathy. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? I'll go for a vote then. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Hearing no opposition, we'll assume that's approved. All right. Committee reports. We have only a cataloging committee report. Beth, did you have that for us?
I do. John Brockman, the chair of the cataloging committee, sent me a summary, and so I'll read that to the group. The committee meeting consisted primarily of the demonstrations and training of a few resources, as well as some general reminders based on their recent review of bibliographic records in the catalog. One of the resources demonstrated was appropriate subject heading terms for Spanish materials. The committee also discussed appropriate subject headings for manga materials in order to differentiate them from other types of comics or graphic novels. In the general reminders portion, topics included proper use and SAGE policy clarifications of certain mark fields, the 040, the 245, the 655, and the 999, as well as common changes to be made during record import. As always, time was allotted for catalogers to ask questions about cataloging in the web client as well as cataloging in general. And that meeting is recorded and up on the SAGE YouTube channel.
Thank you, Beth. Does anyone in the have any comments or questions for Beth at this time? And hearing none, we'll move on to the stage staffing issue that's here. I put together this bit of text here. I feel like it's a good thing for people to have a chance to read. It was unclear to me prior to the discussion I had with Beth, and I believe this makes it clear. So I'm going to go ahead and just read that. A new Oregon law allows an individual to retire and work full-time. Previously, there was a limit on the number of hours per week one could work. Under this new circumstance, Beth proposes to retire and be rehired as a contract employee at Baker County Library District on behalf of SAGE. Baker County, Beth, and any interested parties will work out a proposal for this contract for consideration in the January meeting. If approved, this plan would take effect March 1st in 2020. I hope that that's clear enough that everyone understands now that while Beth has talked about retirement, she's also anticipating staying with us and continuing to work. And this is how that would happen. Are there any comments or questions or concerns to be raised at this time? All right. Would there be anybody interested in working with Baker County and Beth as they look at the proposal so that when the January meeting happens that you could also make comment? Or are you, to me it sounds like we're comfortable with Perry and Beth working this out and bringing a proposal to us. If I don't hear otherwise, I'm going to have to assume that's the case.
Perry and Beth, this is Dia. If you would like input from me, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Beth, are you planning on working full-time or was it less than that?
I was planning on working full-time.
Okay.
All right. Well, we have Dia has volunteered to serve with that. I would hope to have the opportunity to hear whatever or see whatever proposal you put together and be able to make comment on it as well. But it's not something I feel like I have to do. So, are there any other questions or concerns from the group concerning the staffing issue? All right. We'll move on to the system update. Beth and John.
Okay, so later this afternoon, we're going to upgrade the RAM on both of the application servers. I'm going to work with EOU to do that. So this should give a little bit more. We're going to be upgrading them from 6 gigs of RAM to 8 gigs of RAM, which will help with the issues that we're having with how Apache handles web requests and everything. So it'll give us a little bit more flexibility. And then we've already purchased the NAS server, and I'll be working with Brian at EOU to get that set up this week and next to make sure that it's we can get everything. All the backups will be hosted on that instead of on the test server, which will allow me to reinstall the new version of Evergreen on that, so we can, run it through its paces and make sure that it's going to work before we actually upgrade the production servers. Let's see. In October, we had some outages where the database crashed on the 19th, 20th, and the 21st, and it turned out it was because we had a web crawler a crawler that had attacked the database and was causing the database processes just skyrocket. I worked with Equinox and I was able to isolate the problem, and we found a solution and implemented it. Since then, we've had a couple of minor spikes, but nowhere near as bad as they were. So I think I've isolated the queries, and I'm working with them a little bit to try and figure out how to prevent those going forward. That being said, 3.4 has additional security enhancements that they've added that prevents these kinds of attacks. So it's just another reason to work on getting the upgrade implemented. Did I miss anything, Beth?
Not that I can think of, John.
Okay. Sorry, I try to be succinct, but any questions? Okay.
Thank you, John.
Mhm.
Our next issue is the budget planning. That needs to be. We need to be preparing for next year's budget. Our objective is to develop a draft budget for the January meeting to be approved at the March meeting. Let's see. The Strategic Planning Budget Committee will begin meeting in December. We will need some volunteers to serve on that committee. I will serve in that committee. Who else do we have that can serve on that committee?
This is Deneen in Enterprise. I'd be happy to serve on that committee.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Marcia over at KCC. I'd be happy to serve too.
Marcia, KCC. Okay. What has been the typical number of people serving on that committee, Perry?
Oh, I think that's enough.
Okay.
I think it's been like 3. So
Okay.
any
Yeah.
more than that's great.
This is great, and Perry and I will be on there as well, so that'll
Okay.
make 5.
And if I remember correctly, Erin McCusker at the annual meeting said she would be interested in serving on that. I don't know where she's at the moment of being able to do that, but
Okay.
you might keep her in the loop of
I
it as well.
will check with Erin on that. So I have, right now I have Deneen, Enterprise. I have Marcia from KCC. I have myself, Perry, Erin from the Umatilla County Special Library District, and Beth. Okay, now Perry, I think you have some discussion you want to begin going over on the fee structure.
Yes, I will need the screen sharing privileges transferred to
Okay.
me.
Yeah, I can do that. I was going to bring the spreadsheet up, but it'd be better if you had the controls at your helm.
That would be good, yeah.
Okay. So,
And for those who don't already have the link, you can look at it separately. I'll post it in the chat.
okay, Perry, you are presenter.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you should be seeing a white spreadsheet of the SAGE budget fee schedule. Whoops. And let me just orient everybody here. We'll go up to the top left. The libraries are listed by tier on the left column. Then we have the population served and the population change from the last time we had population data, and then a column of the members' population percentage compared to the total population that SAGE serves as a whole. I've collapsed all the columns with previous budget information, but I think you should be able to uncollapse those if you have it open on another window, or if not, I'll uncollapse them after this presentation and you should be able to see those. Green headed column is last year's budget fee schedule, and then the orange one is this year's fee schedule. So last January, we did a survey of members' satisfaction with the pricing structure, and it really was triggered by some libraries whose population crossed the threshold and caused us to create a new tier. I think we created this 4,000 to 7,500 one. So had we not done that, we would have had members just over 4,000 who would have jumped from 1,600 basically to 9,000. So that's why we had to create a middle tier. But that's still a big jump from 4,000 to from population of 4,000 to 4,001. You're going to go from 1,600 to 5,000. This year it would be from 1,700 to 5,300. So you can see that that really highlights the need to create some kind of a logic and more of a graded structure that would avoid those kind of huge increases, which would be hard for any agency to deal with. So how do we do that? The survey showed that there was a good amount of support for using population as a basis for a rate structure. And this option 1 here, I've calculated a amount of 83 cents times the population to see, that is variable. I've settled on that so that we could reach our minimum amount to cover our operations budget, which is about 19,000. So 83 cents gets us there, and that times everybody's population. And that is results in some big changes. You can see the colleges, if we use that as a standard, would be reduced by $4,000 each. Some of the large libraries, however, would be increasing by 3,000 to 9,000. And then down in the middle tiers, we have some reductions of 1 to 2,000. The 4,000 to 7,500 population is a slight increase, but still several $100s. This 2,000 to 4,000 tier would have some increases, and then the smaller libraries, I think, would mostly all have pretty large decreases.
Perry?
Mm-hmm.
Now this is using the same measurement for all types of libraries. I don't know that the schools and the community colleges fall into the same population, because their population is a subset of their bigger population. Does that make sense? Because it's focused on students only and not the general population. So I feel like we might need to have a different strategy for the schools and academics.
Okay.
I would agree.
So yeah, I would be happy to hear whatever structure that would be, if what you'd base that on. So I have 2 other options that I put together. Option 2 utilizes a base fee according to the different tiers. So for example, these university libraries, the annual fee is 12 times 350. What is that? Annual fee is, oops. $4,200, and then there is a rate based on their population served on top of that. And then I've graded that down for community colleges. It would be a base rate of basically $300 a month for the large libraries, 15,000 to 30,000, it would be $250 a month. That would be 3,000, and then their percentage or the rate times their population on top of that, and on down. And that justification for a base rate is kind of like a utility company would do, I guess. It would be like a delivery charge to support maintenance of the infrastructure, hardware, software security, and technical support, and kind of assumes that the larger libraries are going to incur more labor and demand and usage of the system, so they should pay more. That's option 2, and then we have option 3, which is very similar to option 1 in that it uses a kind of a rate times the population, but instead of 83 cents, what we're doing is timesing the percentage, if you remember that column, of the service population percentage of the SAGE as a whole times our minimum that we need to raise. So 200, say it would be 220,000 that we need to raise. And Ontario has 10.3% of the population. 10.3% of 220,000 would be 17,380. So that's option 3. In all of these, would be huge changes from the current structure, and we couldn't do it all at once. Some of the libraries would have to pay way more, some would pay way less. So to extend that out over 5 years, I've projected changes that are no more or no less than 10% until we get close to what the target is based on that rate.
What's the time frame at the longest that you're seeing on these, Barry?
So that's a 5-year schedule.
That's everything's accomplished in 5 years.
Yeah, and some of the libraries wouldn't actually get all the way to the target rate, so we might have to extend to 6 or 7 years beyond that to get them there. But this is just a starting point. This is just to get the ideas flowing and the conversation started. And the committee can come up with whatever structure that we want, but I just wanted to get some ideas out there. The preference has been voiced that we need to change it. How do we do that? And these are some ideas. So let's work together and figure out how to do that.
I think from my point of view, I like part of what I see in option 2. However, part of that question becomes is what is that base figure and how is that calculated so that can either be, is that something that we could be addressed in the future as well? Another element that I feel like has to be addressed is if we're really going to go to a new pricing structure, I feel like we have to do that in a reasonable amount of time. And I think going beyond 5 years, I'm not sure 5 years is even a reasonable amount of time, but it seems like a long amount of time for us to try to move in that direction, where we're asking some to pay more than what we have now calculated as their share, and others to pay much less. And then that's me not looking at any of the particulars on there, just raising what are the concerns that I see, and certainly welcome input from the rest of you.
I'm concerned about some of the operating budgets of these libraries and whether even in 5 years whether they can handle that kind of increase. Just because their funding might not be there.
I understand your concern, Beth. Part of my concern is we cannot operate SAGE without funding.
That's correct, yeah.
And so at some point, there has to be an expectation of a level of participation. Whether there's a way to keep that low for some of those or not, I don't know. I'm not saying it's not a value, but I do say at some point we have to say this is a viable and a logical billing mechanism that we've created and that we can defend.
I think are you talking about the 2,000 to 4,000 tier, Beth? Because that's the one that really does see a significant increase.
Yeah, yes, that's the area I'm kind of most concerned about.
Yeah, that's the one that's really off kilter from their charges, really per capita rate that they're paying compared to other members. And that, that's not fair to the other communities that are paying more for the same service. So we do have to figure out something.
Gary, were those numbers of the population served provided by the state library? Because enterprises have really dropped.
I think I used the reports from the state library, the last one that was published on their website.
Yeah, and you did
it does show a drop of 1,200 on the sheet here.
Yeah, so that enterprise in gray right there in the 2 to 4, the enterprise is no longer in that category.
Right,
Yes.
we dropped a category, and I mean, I thought it would probably, the numbers would go up with the county library closing. I don't know what to make of that number. And this has nothing to do with this conversation. I'm just
Okay.
curious.
Well, I think the source of our numbers is very relevant, though, to any of a conversation with this, because if we are not using the same source of numbers, our calculations will never, we have to agree what's the source of our numbers if we're going to come up with a formula that we feel like we can defend. And so that is important, I think.
Yeah, my understanding was that we were using state library statistics.
And I'm fine with that as long as we all go in understanding that's our intention.
So then the question in my mind then comes to, when do we pull those population statistics? Because we have to base a budget on statistics that might be a year old.
Yeah, exactly.
So we need to be aware of that too as we're talking about that, because when we say this is the population for 2019, it's actually based on, what, a year ago? So we just need to keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, I think we're still awaiting the posting of the most recent state reports. So
exactly.
This
would actually be based on 17-18.
Yes, that's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that we can get any more accurate than that unless we look at city-county resources for population.
Well, my understanding is most of those are getting that from Portland State University, their census group. I know that's where my city planner goes for his details and informations, which I think is reasonable, but it's not necessarily going to be the same thing that the state library looks at. You know, my sense is that unless we've had something really drastic, I think using the library, the state library figures is a reasonable thing to do. It's defendable because we can all look at it and say, yes, this is the number that we've all been given and we all understand these numbers. Unless somebody wants to come in and say, you know, we've had X event happen in our community of manufacturers left and now half the community is gone, or something has happened and we've had overnight we've had 1,000 people move in. That's the only kind of change I can see that we would, we might want to say, is there a reason for modification here? And those are unusual. Those are not the norm, from my understanding, unless somebody feels like it's possible that those kinds of things can happen.
So Kathleen asked a question, where do the state library population numbers come from? And I was going to actually respond to your comment, Mark. My understanding is that the state library population numbers do come from PSU.
Yes, I believe they do as well.
So we're all kind of coming back to that same, but it also bears the question, how much extra work do we want to put into figuring all of it every time when it's already being done?
Oh, I don't think we want
like
to.
For
I
the
think
state
we want
library.
to.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we want to accept somebody's numbers and understand that they're old, and
Right.
that there may be other events that come in and affect them that we should be aware of. But I think those events are unusual and rare.
And they shouldn't change really drastically. I mean, it is like you say, it's rare that the population's going to have a massive flux. Right. And actually, with the current pricing structure, with the tiers, your libraries are in much more of a danger to have a massive pricing change, much more of a risk under the tier structure than that would be under a rate per capita. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. And I think that pulls us out of the notion of, oh, you're approaching this number and sorry, it's just going to suck to be you. Which for that reason, I think the rate is a better way to go. But I also understand that, the rate issue is going to have an impact as well.
Yeah, we have to do. I mean, look at the 4,000 to 7,500, paying 5,300. You get over to 7,501, and you're going to be paying almost double. Yeah. So we'd have to create another tier, probably, to make that bridge, because that's just an unreasonable jump. Yeah. I mean, I guess we could continue doing that. That's the alternative. Create more and more tiers that would bridge these big swings.
But what we end up doing in the long run is we create a semi-cap rate or a per capita rate by creating that many different.
Right.
To me, that's what you end up doing in that process.
And it's just our tiers are pretty arbitrary. How do we group them?
Well, and that's the hard part with anything like that, and with your option 2. How do you come up with that? This is a big group. This is a small group. This is a medium group. I mean, and right. How do you figure that? At some point, you want a certain level of logic to go along with that, so that as circumstances change, you can look at your logic and say it's time to adjust this, or it's still a good logic.
Right.
So.
Perry, I think this is a great start. I think this gives us a lot of good things to look at, and I think it is time. And I like the idea of 5 years to phase it in. We just have to decide what the right combination is, which of these options.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like the idea of the the lower capita rate and some sort of a monthly fee for a tier. The best of the options.
Who's this, please? I'm sorry.
Oh, this is Ryan and LeGrand.
Okay. Thank you, Ryan.
This is Deneen in Enterprise. And we did the survey. I mean, through the survey, did we not learn that most people realize that what we're doing right now probably isn't what we should be doing? So, I mean, I know it's going to hurt. And my numbers aren't right, so mine's not going to go down. That's crazy. But I think we all know that we have to find an equitable way to pay for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, and agencies are not going. You're never going to be happy about a bill going up.
Yeah.
But if you can justify it with a sound logic, then they'll work on a way to pay for it.
Yeah. Do we have any other discussion or any other? We've heard from several of you, and several of you have listened a lot. If there's any other comments you have, please pass them along to one of the people that we named previously that will be serving: Janine, Marcia, myself, Perry, Aaron, or Beth. I'd be happy to entertain more conversation now.
This is Deneen in Enterprise, and I will say that if the committee is going to meet in December, I will talk to the state library about our numbers before that meeting. They have numbers down in every community in our county, and that's just not possible. So I'll get see if I can find out what those numbers are all about.
That'd be great, Deneen.
This is Dia. I just wanted to say thank you guys for plowing ahead with this because I know it's been a long time coming.
Well, so far all the pretty color paperwork is done by Perry, so thank you, Perry.
Mm-hmm.
Anne had a question in the chat about it, if anybody wants to address that.
Paying the same number.
Maybe more of a suggestion.
Yeah, we could add that option, and that's kind of what I was after with phasing the changes in. But yeah, we could have some that wouldn't go down for sure, and see how that affects the others.
I might just mention though that for some place like Umatilla County Special Library District that pays for like 12 of them, that's going to be a big hit in the shorts if none of them go down.
Mm.
So I don't know how many others that might affect, but I just thought I'd throw that out there as a situation that's going to, cause us some serious consideration of things.
Mm-hmm. With that only increases and none of them decreasing to adjust, right?
Right. I haven't tried to add up yet, but I did take note this morning that there would be some adjustments up and down based on all of these that would make it a little bit easier for our board to swallow, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But
do
anyway,
you guys pay as a whole?
We pay for all of them, with the exception of Hermiston. We pay a portion of theirs.
Okay.
And the billing happens direct. I pay the district, and the district then pays the bill for the whole.
Okay.
So it was fun figuring that out, I'll tell you.
You're a member, but not like the others.
Some of these things are not like the other. Yeah, it's a Sesame Street thing. What can I say?
Right.
All right. This is that fun part where we can't see each other's faces, and all I can do is hear silence. And so I think we might just be ready to go ahead and move on to the back to the agenda. Thank you, Perry. Appreciate your work on this to date, and we'll look forward to working with you on the as we put together a budget proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. All right, Beth, our next subject is system migration. I've put some notes in there as well so that we can all see them clearly, and Beth has informed me that there is a date scheduled for January 15th, 2020, and I'm going to leave the rest of it to Beth now.
So I have scheduled this date with Equinox, but this is a matter for discussion by the Sage Council. That date can obviously be changed. I just wanted to get us in the window if this was a date that worked out for the group. So thoughts about that date?
It's a
Are we
Wednesday.
still looking at doing a load test?
We did a partial load test. Baker had announced a particular week, and I know they used the system exclusively.
I don't remember seeing that.
Okay.
So I'm sure others may have missed it as well.
Yes, that's very possible. And yes, we would be doing another test of having everybody use the web client. If we are going to proceed with the January 15th date, I would be sending out a schedule of webinars plus the load week test, getting all of those dates on the calendar for folks. But I have to know kind of what date we're comfortable with. Another thing to add to the discussion of this is I will be spending 2 weeks in Thailand in February. And I just wanted to, I guess, gauge the feelings of the council whether leaving for Thailand on February 12th is too soon after a January 15th migration.
I don't think so.
I mean,
Personally.
obviously, John is going to be around, and so there's going to be support. I just wanted to make sure that everyone had a heads up on that. The January 15th, that would give us a little less than 2 months to prepare, but we've already started preparing. The RAM that we're increasing was a recommendation by Equinox prior to upgrade. That was a suggestion they made, and EOU was able to take care of that today. So we've put some things into place already. I've got pages ready to go with all of the bug fixes that have been implemented from 3.1.12 through 3.4.1, which is the latest version of the software, as well as new features in each of those releases of the software. So that's something I can put up on the website. So I guess I'm just trying to gauge whether we're comfortable with that date, and then I can start moving towards all the things that need to be in place for that.
This is Marcia from KCC. I was wondering, are we going to be able to use the system on that day of the migration still? Because that's right after the new term starts. We're going to have a lot of new students coming in to check things out, and it's going to be pretty busy. So,
at least for part of the day, the system will be down.
will we know what part of the day before it happens?
They will start, because they're on the East Coast, they will start before our day starts. So they'll be at least a couple, 2-3 hours ahead of us doing the work, but it will be in the morning.
Okay.
So if that is a problem for you, we can look at other dates that are available.
Wednesdays, they're good. As a concept, it's not one of our busier days of the week. I think our busier days are on the Monday and Friday ends. So I like Wednesday.
So would the beginning of a new term affect all of our schools in terms of the community colleges? And when does that term start?
I would think so, and the term starts on January 6th. So that's when we have all the new students coming in. The first couple of weeks are really busy with the new students getting signed up to be able to check things out, things like that.
Well, I'm looking at the calendar thinking that's a week and a half out. You're maybe going to have not quite the impact as if it was the day or two after.
Yeah, I would be recommending a change if we had it on the 8th.
We'll just, yeah, if we know it, if the date's at that and it's set ahead of time, I can just put up sign. It should be okay.
Does Equinox have Martin Luther King Day off? Is that not an option to do it on that day?
They always do it on Wednesdays so that, yeah, I don't know whether they have the holiday off. Typically they do it on Wednesdays so that they have time on either end to prepare for the upgrade. Doing it Wednesday allows them 2 business days after the upgrade to solve any issues that may have arisen before the weekend. So it's just kind of their game plan.
Well, certainly they've done it enough times. I'll defer to their expertise on that.
Okay.
It sounds like we have a reasonably good date on January 15th.
Okay.
There's no day that's not going to create some pain, but looks like being aware of it and everything, we should be able to address the issues that we have.
Okay.
Pushing it further back makes your window before you go on a vacation shorter, which is
not a benefit to us.
Not a big benefit to us, right?
Yeah, I thought if we pushed it any farther back, we might have to be looking at March. And just because of the impact of some of the changes, system performance-wise, I didn't want to really push it back that far unless we had to. Okay, so let's go for January 15th. I'll start putting the pages together up on the website, and there's a banner we can put in the catalog for scheduled maintenance. How long do you think that should be displayed in the catalog before the actual day?
What have we used in the past, or have we?
We have. It's been various periods of time. My comfort level feels like anywhere between 2 weeks and a month ahead, but a month might be too much. It depends on how often people are in the catalog.
And if you put it too far out, though, people begin to ignore it.
Right.
They do.
I think 10 to 14 days is good.
Have it pop up New Year's Day.
New Year's surprise.
New for this year.
You can say Happy New Year and also.
Yeah. Put this in your schedule. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate your work on this. And our next item on the agenda is the Evergreen app. Beth, you've got the one on this as well.
Okay, so we've had some discussions in the past about an Evergreen app and whether one was available. And I found out about this programmer who has created some custom Evergreen apps for other consortia. And I contacted him for a quote. And you can see in the agenda that he could develop a custom app for between $1,200 and $5,000 depending on customizations. I can't see, I mean, we don't have any app at all. I don't see our demands being that great. I feel like the $1,200 price is going to get us what we want. So there's been some questions about why an app. I think most of us have used apps in our everyday life, and in some cases it makes access a lot easier because your login is stored and the app is designed for finding things easily. This app would allow folks to search the catalog, place holds, access their account, and find out what things they have checked out, that kind of thing. So are there any questions, concerns about the possibility of paying for an app?
The one question that I...
Go ahead, Mark.
The one question that I had has to do with as the system updates and provides new features to the customer, we would probably need to have the app reflect those as well. And does that mean that we'd have to go back to have it redesigned or more custom work?
I will ask that question specifically, Mark, but I don't believe so. I believe that the app software is taking advantage of the OPAC programming that's already changing as we upgrade. So,
okay.
But I can ask to make sure that we've got our.
And I'm thinking future upgrades as well. If a year from now there's another upgrade and there's a feature that the customer really likes, what I guess what I'm concerned about is will the app stay in pace with the features the catalog offers, or so that people would actually rather go to the catalog than go to the app?
Yeah.
And that's where I don't know.
Now, an app like this would be pulling from the website information, so it doesn't. I mean, once he sets up the parameters, it's about changing it to make it more user-friendly for a phone in a specific way, rather than having to access it through the website. So,
right.
It's just reformatting. It doesn't really actually
create anything new.
No.
No. Well, and that's my concern, is that we keep current with what is new on the website.
Right. Can we look at this developer's custom apps for other consortia that are already out there to see what kind of work he does?
I'm not hearing anything.
Sorry.
Me neither.
I had my mic muted. Sorry. I know that there's an Android app called Hemlock that is available for download.
Is that Ken Cox's work?
Yes. And
Hemlock apps by Kenster.
Yep. So we could even bring that up on the web, so you could see screenshots.
He did a Pines version for the Georgia Pines library system too.
Yeah, he's done several, and so he's got the experience. This is a sideline for him. It's not his. He's not an app I guess, you know, he wanted to specifically do this because I think his wife works at one of the libraries and wanted an app, and so he figured it out. So he's got some good experience, and like I said, there's some consortia that wanted a lot of custom changes.
I like the dark background already. I always like that.
It really makes the text pop out.
Well, and at night, you're just not blinded unnecessarily.
True.
Yeah.
This is Dia. I have a quick question. Have we used development money yet for anything this year?
Not to my knowledge.
For that. I have put in the most recent financial figures into the budget spreadsheet.
And or did we have something specific we had in mind for that money that we put in the budget is the other question.
There's $733 spent out of that technology line so far. And we have 4,500 in it, 2,000 for development, 2,500 for Equinox.
Okay.
And what will our next upgrade cost?
We're actually going to
Because that
have
will come out of there, correct?
no. Well, I didn't think they were in the same category, but it looks like it is. We are going to have to purchase additional hours for the upgrade. In the past, we have spent some development money on a vendor sponsor at the Evergreen conference. But that's optional, and we could choose to not do that this year.
Well, we have $37,000 in our contingency fund, which could certainly be applied to anything. And actually, I think our beginning cash, it was 2,000 or 205,000, pretty much, and we'd budgeted 195,000. So there's an extra 10,000 to play with there as well.
Do we need to identify the location we're going to draw funds to pay for Equifax at this point? Or Equinox, I'm not sure.
Well, the technology line is where the Equinox hours have come out of, and they could certainly come out again. I guess, we have enough money in the overall budget that we could move some things around if we wanted to do the app this year.
I like the idea of getting an app going.
Yeah, me too.
Timing wise, should we phase it in after the upgrade?
That seems reasonable considering you've got enough other things on the plate.
Well, and I think it would be a nice, add-on
Additional
to the
feature.
upgrade, that, and guess what? We did this upgrade and we also have an app now. I think the timing would be good. If folks can wait till January or February for the app.
What's 2 or 3 more months when we've been waiting for a while?
True.
So is the app is not open source that like the Evergreen is, or is it just the customization that costs?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it's the customization that costs and working with the app locations and getting it on, the Google Play and the Apple Store, those kinds of things.
Okay. And for a comparison quote, do you have any proposals or any prospective other developers that could give a competing quote?
I do not. I was left with just going out on the web and finding some random app programmer, which I don't. Oh, so the app is open source. But you have to have the knowledge and programming skills to be able to pull it off.
Well, I haven't really used it, but it seems like if it's open source, might be usable now.
Yeah, although when I tried it, because I tried downloading the Hemlock app and then it indicated that my catalog was not a part of it. If somebody else experiences something different, please let me know. But I tried to be able to search our catalog. So I'm not sure why it says it gives you access to hundreds of Evergreen-powered libraries.
Maybe it's a matter of giving it permission to access through certain ports.
It might be, and that's a possibility, although this is only an Android app. It does not work on iPhones.
What would it take to do that? I mean, there's a lot of iPhones out here.
Yeah, and that's why I pursued, working with Ken on giving us our own so that it has our logo. It's recognizable by our patrons.
Is he able to help it or make it so that it can be an Apple as well?
Oh yeah, the $1,200 cost covers both an app for an Android and an app for Apple.
Beth, do you need anything to move forward with this or not? Do you need a motion or?
Yeah, I would feel much more comfortable spending this money out of the budget with approval by the Sage Council.
I'll entertain any motion.
This is Dia. I'd move that we move forward with getting an app built for the Sage Library system if it's within the lower end of the range.
This is Ryan. I'll second that.
All right, discussion. Do we need to set a dollar figure on that instead of just saying the lower range?
No more than 5,000, or at the lower end of 2,000.
Yeah,
No
I
more
would
than
say
2,000.
no more than 2,000. Yeah.
I'd amend my motion then to 2,000.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
If there's any opposed, please let it be known.
So I'm looking at the app now on my phone, and it has a list of libraries. Sage is not on there, so I don't know what the process is to get us in that list. Maybe it's going to be a lot less than 2,000 if we just need to sign up to get going, but customization.
But then we limit only to Android
Yeah.
because
Right,
there is no
but that-
current iOS.
And the nice thing about having our own one rather than it being called Hemlock is that we could use the name Sage.
Mm-hmm.
Sage app, unless
Yeah.
it's taken.
Yeah.
All right, Beth, anything else we need to work over on this?
No, I think we're good. Thanks, everyone.
Great. All right. Beth, Cat Express overage increases.
Yes. So we had a situation where we didn't get communication from OCLC, even though, according to OCLC, all the Cat Express members received word, and a notice was sent out in June. But the consequence of this Cat Express charge increase has to do with we have a number of libraries that use Cat Express to bring in catalog records from OCLC via batch. And we subscribe to a certain number of records per year per institution. And in the past, when we've gone over that subscription amount, it's been a few cents more, but nothing dramatic. And so we've encouraged our libraries to underestimate the number of records that they are going to bring in during a certain subscription year. But what OCLC has done is they have now doubled the cost of overage records. So rather than paying $1.30 per record, you pay $2.60 per record, which is a significant increase for those libraries that have gone over. And with the foreknowledge of that, we can make changes for the future, but it may impact a few libraries that maybe had 200 extra records, and now instead of paying the $1.30 rate, they're paying the $2.60 rate. So I guess I wanted to bring that to the attention of the council in case there were financial issues with some of these institutions being able to afford the increase because it was an unplanned event. Whether we want to offer help with this as a SAGE consortium, or they just have to bite the bullet. We do have the opportunity to change our subscription amounts. If we let them know by the 22nd of November, we will avoid this problem for next year. But our bills will come due for the records we've already added, unfortunately. So thoughts?
What is the dollar figure you're talking about SAGE having to pick up for other libraries?
Let me take a quick look, Perry. The difference between the overage amount at $1.30, we've got $746.20 at $2. It would be double that. So we're talking about $700 and some dollars. Now, some of the libraries that only added added a smaller amount of overage records, are probably fine with paying the overage. I'm just looking at places like Oregon Trail. They had 222 extra records. Ontario Library District had 167 extra records, and Klamath had 151 extra records. So those institutions are going to get the largest hit with this increase. And like I said, I don't know where the email that they supposedly sent to us is, but they indicated that each member has been informed for at least a year, and they sent out another notice in June.
And if they say they emailed or contacted each of the libraries that we're part of, I never received anything.
Yeah, I don't have any record of receiving anything. Perry at Baker couldn't find anything.
No, I did. It was in the invoice, I guess you would call it, but it was kind of buried below some other information.
But that
It was easy to miss.
But that was after we'd already used all these extra, records. I guess
Oh, there was one from 2018 and 2019 in June.
Oh, okay. So it was
So
buried.
last year's invoice had a notice
And we didn't
buried
see
in
it.
the subtext
Yeah.
informing about this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the 2018 said the change was coming. 2019 one said change is happening, next month on July 1. But they were both pretty buried.
I think that's pretty poor professionalism on OCLC's part.
Yeah.
I agree.
I could
For
say
such a
lots
huge
of
increase,
things.
they should have sent a separate alert out.
Well,
Exactly.
And I think, the email I received back from OCLC indicated that all it indicated was that there was an increase, and you actually had to go out to their website to find out what your increase was going to be based upon the subscription level. So, it was pretty buried. And I guess I'm just concerned about it's kind of like it isn't our fault, but we have to deal with it. And so I don't know how much latitude we have to help these libraries out, since we're all in the same boat, having to deal with this cost increase. Should we wait and see if it's a financial hardship for the particular institution?
Okay. I don't think it's Sage's responsibility to be a shock absorber. I understand the desire to make sure we help everyone and keep everyone even keeled, but I think part of that is part of the way we do that is we communicate clearly what we're being billed for and what we have to deal with. And I think that's, there's an element, there's part of me here that's saying, and I understand that somebody else understands this better than I do, but, it's part of cost of business to get a record from another organization. And unless Sage is paying for the lion's share of that, I'm going to have to assume that on some level each library has found their own way to pay for that and should continue to do so. I don't know how that actually works, so I'll shut up now.
I'm also kind of the opinion that if you're going over that much, you should have just changed your subscription level before you started having 200 records in overage.
Yeah, and
Well,
Anyway.
Go ahead.
Can I just mention that in the past, we have been recommended that we use that model, that we undersubscribe, because it costs less than if we oversubscribe because we pay for whatever we get. I mean, we pay for whatever we subscribe to, whether we receive it or not.
Right. So yeah, if you don't download as many records as you said you were, it helps because we're a group and we can kind of ebb and flow together. So as a group, we went over 574 records, but some people were under, some people were over, and we can do that within the group and mitigate some of those losses. But if you pay for those records and don't use them, you don't get the money back from OCLC. So that's why we've undersubscribed for years, because we don't want to pay for something we're not getting. So now we just have to be more accurate and stay within those boundaries unless we're willing to pay the extra cost. And so
And each library needs to track better.
Yeah, that's true. Either that or I'm going to have to kind of keep an eye on it and send them reminders. So no, I agree with you, Mark. I think that's a good way to look at it. Is everybody in the same kind of mind frame as Mark?
Well, this is Marcia. And since KCC was one of these libraries, I wouldn't have changed my practices any. You know, I buy records because I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
And I don't have time to sit down and do original cataloging. And so, you know, I budgeted a certain amount and I found out there's a price increase. Well, I'll have to just find it in the budget somewhere. You know, I don't think that all of SAGE should have to pay for KCC's records. So that's perfectly fine with me, what Mark said.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Marcia. Okay, well, we can move on to the next agenda item. I just wanted to kind of make the SAGE Council aware of it and that we're going to be making some adjustments for the future.
Thank you, Beth. You want to go ahead and take on the next two then, since you're...
Sure.
It's you.
Yes, me. Easy Proxy subscription for SAGE. In the past, we have offered proxy service for various libraries in the consortium. And we purchased our original Easy Proxy subscription long time ago. At one time, in the early days, it was with EOU, and we're actually using one of EOU's servers for the Easy Proxy service. The reason I'm bringing it up today is because when EOU separated from SAGE, they got their own Easy Proxy subscription as a part of what the ILS that they are with. And we just kind of let things slide. Basically, we just kept using the same software version that we've always had, and we've been able to still provide service, but now it's becoming, we had an issue last month where Gale databases started not working for Columbia Gorge Community College. I did everything I could at my end, and it came down to the fact that you've got to update your Easy Proxy software in order for us to provide Gale access off campus to these students. So I'm asking the council as to whether we want to continue providing this service. And if so, I got a quote from OCLC for what this subscription would cost us. There's a setup fee of $500, and then the annual subscription cost would be $1,175. In the quote request, I indicated that up to 15 libraries would be using this service. And so in the past, we've provided services to the Oregon Trail Library District for some databases, the Umatilla County Special Library District. Currently, Treasure Valley Community College and Columbia Gorge Community College use the Easy Proxy service for a lot of their database use off campus.
So, Beth, this is Dia. I'm just wondering, do then those libraries pay into that at all, or is it just something that the consortium has absorbed?
In the past, the
How does
consortium
that work?
has absorbed it. We haven't had any annual subscription costs in recent years because we just kept using the same software version, and that's no longer viable. So we could look at sharing those costs if it isn't something that SAGE wants to subsume and provide for its members.
Is that fee regardless of the number of libraries that were using the service? So if more libraries wanted to use the Easy Proxy service for stuff, would that change the cost at all?
It would if it goes beyond the 15 library count that I had, and they base it on population served. I got individual quotes for TVCC and CGCC, and I think for each of them it was around, it was the same setup cost of $500, and then I think it was $600 or $650 annually for that institution by itself.
Okay.
It sounds like that's an add-on that's used by a small portion of SAGE members that should be billed just like Cat Express.
I would agree.
Yep.
Okay. So I need to find out how many institutions would potentially use the service. Dia, you're not aware of any databases the district is using?
We don't have any databases now.
Okay, because there for a while we were providing a Easy Proxy for the district.
Right. We haven't had any for a couple of years though.
However, there are, I think I have some, and I share one with Pendleton. So I don't know if we're using Easy Proxy or not, though, to be honest with you.
Well, a lot of our, we're able to use SIP for a lot of our patron authentication applications. This is primarily for database access, you know, outside of the library IP.
Right.
So yeah, I don't think as many libraries are using the service anymore. We had three libraries using NetLibrary for a while. We had NetLibrary links in the catalog. I believe all of those have gone away. So I'll just have to do some investigation, but the feeling of the council is that this is an add-on and needs to be billed out accordingly.
Yeah, I think I would.
If they have the option to use SIP at no cost, why would they not do that, or is that not an option in these databases?
It's not an option with the academic databases.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise we would be using that. We did explore an option on the Gale end with CGCC because we were in this crisis situation of using Moodle, their learning management system platform. But the drawback of that is that it requires all of the faculty to change their Moodle pages in order to incorporate these new links. And I guess that the library has been struggling with training all the faculty to be able to do this. So they would really love a subscription to Easy Proxy, but I don't, it'll come down to whether they can afford to share this cost, I think. Okay.
This is Marcia from KCC.
Hi, Marcia.
I have a question about the Easy Proxy. It's my understanding that to put our individual ebooks that we purchase for classes onto Sage, that we have to have Easy Proxy. Is that correct?
You have to have some kind of authentication method, and Easy Proxy has been the easiest one for us to get working, because then they can link directly from the catalog to your database, the whatever resource, the ebook. Once they authenticate once, then they're into their ebook. It's, I guess the interaction between the two is pretty smooth once you've got it set up.
Okay, that's something that I'm interested in if it's still available.
Okay. Well, what we might look at, Marcia, is a cost sharing between the 3 community colleges that are using it currently.
Right.
And that would lower everyone's cost.
Okay.
Rather than going out individually.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea. Just let me know.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. All right, the last one, last agenda item is really quick. I just wanted to let you know that I was still working on the Sage training platform using Moodle. I've created several video tutorials using software called Snagit. It's easy to use, and I can put the videos together very quickly. I had a patron help ticket come in. Somebody wanted to know how to add to a list. I was able to create a video and in a couple minutes send it out to her, and she really appreciated it. So I think it's going to be a useful resource for us. I just have to have the time to get all of it together. So anyways, just an update. I have one more piece of information to share with the council, as I received word that the Cove Public Library is withdrawing from Sage. Currently, they are just a resource sharing partner. They're a volunteer library and don't have anybody to take care of the resource sharing, and they don't have patrons using it because those patrons are going to Union and LeGrand to do their ILLs. So anyway, that will be one less library in Sage.
Okay. Thank you, Beth. Is there anything more to come before the board?
This is Deneen in Enterprise, and I do have a couple of things that I want to talk about, but perhaps I don't know if there's a better place to talk about it. It's a couple of just basic operating things. I'd like to know if less libraries are allowing their new materials to circulate. It seems like lately we allow ours to go out, and it seems like the request is much higher than it used to be. So I'd like to know some numbers on that. Also, I don't know if it states it in the rules or if it's a suggestion, but our materials check out for 3 checkouts, that's 9 weeks, and I would like to somewhere put out there that if you need to keep it longer, maybe it's being used in a classroom, whatever, that you contact the owning library, that it's not okay with me for people to take our material and check it out to the same person 5 or 6 times. And I don't know where to go with these, so that's just what I want to talk about. And also, we don't, and I've talked with Beth about this, we don't appear to have any way of tracking items that have gone into transit and then just magically disappeared. And I've had quite a bit of loss this year that way. So those are just some concerns that I have. I don't know if I should take it to the circulation committee. I mean, I think we all kind of go on just, you know, best practice and, you know, treat the other libraries like you want to be treated. But the over 3 renewals thing, I almost, if we have to, let's make it a rule.
I think it is a rule. Sounds like some people aren't following it.
Yeah, I mean, That's just common courtesy. Are you seeing a pattern with particular libraries? I mean, how often are you seeing this, Janine?
Well, I'm seeing it more than I want to, but it tends to be juvenile materials that I think are being used in classrooms, which is perfectly fine with me. But I think as a courtesy, if they're going to do that, they need to let me know. I mean, just give me a call or send me an email and say, hey, you know, we need this for another quarter or whatever, and make sure it's all right with me. And so, because they have to override it, so they know they're doing it. And I don't know. It's not right.
It isn't right, and you know, if they're using it that much, they should buy it.
Well, yeah, and sometimes it's like little paperback stuff. It just seems silly, and it seems silly that for me to even be worried about it. But I'm really careful. I really, my interlibrary loan stuff, I really track it good, and I try to be really careful with the other libraries. And I could watch it. I haven't noticed a particular library, but I'd be happy to keep track, because if they're not, then yeah, I don't know. We can ask them nice.
Yeah, I'd like to work with you on this, Janine, but I think it's also, this is something good for the circulation committee to talk about. I know that there's been some discussion, and we just need to get the circulation committee more active so that we can bring things to the council, and maybe make some changes to existing documentation.
Okay, and I'll try to make myself available for the next circulation meeting. I just have trouble getting to the meetings.
Okay.
And Beth, do you have a feel? Do you know by looking how many people have holds on their new materials, if that's going up or down? It used to be about 50%.
I know that more and more libraries have chosen to use the age protection. The 3-month setting, something that we talked about at the annual meeting was the fact that we needed to eliminate the 6-month age protection, because 3 months should be adequate. And I think that libraries have just had to go to that because it's, you know, there's so many that are doing it. It doesn't give you any advantage not to do it. But are you seeing a decrease in libraries sharing their materials past that 3 months? Is that what you're concerned about, Janine, or the brand new things?
I'm just really noticing it on the new things, and that's sort of the decision I'm coming up with. If nobody else is lending them, but they're allowing their patrons to borrow them, then I'm going to have to put the age protection hold on my stuff too. And I think it's wrong, but I mean, if everybody's doing it, then I'm going to have to do it too, because I have to protect my materials. I wish everybody would just open it wide open. And we have lots of new good stuff. It's not like, you know, I'm this little podunk library and, you know, I don't but I can't send all my new stuff out. I catalog it, and the next day it all goes out through interlibrary loan. I can't do that.
Yeah, I think for now.
That's what was happening to Baker stuff, and that's why we started using the age protection. Same reason.
Same in LeGrand too.
And I think that's exactly the reason why some of the smaller libraries have chosen to do that.
So yeah, I would recommend.
We won't think less of you if you do.
Yeah. Until we can get everybody convinced to open things up, Janine, I think it's better off if you use age protection for the 3 months too.
Okie dokie.
And don't think of it as a negative, really. I don't. I think of it as being responsive to our local community who's funding our ability to provide them this material. And I suspect that some libraries, you know, unfortunately, their community is not as supportive with funding their library, and they were kind of piggybacking on the generosity of our library, which is the whole purpose of it. But the 3-month embargo is just a little preference given to our own community before we start sharing with those other libraries. I don't think of it as bad. I think of it as a good support of our local community that's been really good to themselves through their library.
I agree, but sometimes I look up at the new shelf and I see a book that's been sitting there for 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, I should have let that go out. You know what I mean? It's just, there are several ways to look at it, but yeah, I think I'll probably have to do that.
Yeah. And sometimes when I do see, I mean, you don't have to put the embargo on all of your new stuff. If there's something that's just sitting there, I'll see those and I'll take the embargo off, because if it's not in demand here, then it might as well be open to the rest of Sage.
That's a good point, Perry.
Is there any other subjects of discussion?
I'd make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Any opposed? We're hanging up already. Thank you much, everybody. Appreciate all your work.
Bye.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Beth. Do we need to go over anything, or?
No, we're good. I will process the recording